Hi guys, my name is George Mehta, and I will be giving a presentation today about why I believe that the best leaders are those who lead from learning how to lead instead of those who lead from an innate ability. So I'm going to begin my presentation on a refutation of some of the innate arguments. Um, One argument I often hear is that there are many species in the animal kingdom that have individuals who have inherent leadership traits. I deny this argument just on the simple fact that we are human. Whether you believe in a God or whether you believe in no God, you cannot deny the fact that us humans are distinctly different from the rest of the animals on Earth. If you believe in a God, you most likely believe that we were created as loved beings by God. Or if you do not believe in God, you believe that us humans have an ability to reason that other animals do not. Another refutation is that even if we are born with an innate ability to lead, that those innate abilities still need to be cultivated so that the leadership ability can come to fruition. An example of this is Alexander the Great. He was born to a Macedonian king, King Philip, who was a fantastic leader. He was born into a strong family where his mom was also a person of very strong character. And he was born he was going to inherit the Macedonian kingdom that had a fantastic army. But Alexander the Great's father still thought it was very important for him to learn from Aristotle. And historians also point out the fact that Alexander the Great learned how to lead from watching his father lead the army. It was not simply the fact that he was his father's son, is that he was his son who watched his father. Another argument against the fact that people believe leadership comes from innate ability is the implications of what that would mean. That would mean that we are simply the culmination of sociological, biological, and psychological factors. That we have no free will, and our destiny is simply determined by factors out of our hands. Another implication would mean that eugenics are a very viable option to weed out the best leaders and to weed out the worst leaders. Because it's in our genes. It's an innate ability. We should be able to discover who would become the best leaders and who would be the worst leaders. And then you could further this to different job markets, and you could further this to what races would be the best. And as we saw in World War II, that was awful. An example from history of why I believe that the innate ability to lead does not necessarily mean you'll make the best leader is Commodus. He was a Roman emperor. He was the son of Marcus Aurelius, and Marcus Aurelius was a fantastic emperor. He was the one who wrote Meditations. He was a very stoic warrior, and he furthered Rome's empire better than a lot of Roman emperors at the time. And Commodus then he had Commodus as a son, and Commodus had everything. He had Rome in a very good position after his father died. His father was a fantastic leader, and so he had the correct genes to be a really good leader. Commodus was awful. He was egotistical. Rome experienced great famine and bankruptcy during his reign, and he did not know how to fix it. And Commodus' reign was the beginning of the end of the Roman Empire. So this shows that just because you have an innate ability to lead does not necessarily mean you'll make the best leader. So my argument for leaders those who learn how to lead make the best leaders starts like this. So my first proposition is that the best leaders are results of their strong character. Second premise is that character is learned. The third premise, that character automatically leads to leadership. And my fourth and final premise is, therefore, the best leaders learn how to lead. And I'll be going through each premise throughout the speech. So the first argument, that the best leaders lead out of strong character. So when someone possesses strong character, or as we say now, just character, this means that they possess mental and moral qualities that are of positive value. An example of this is Gandhi. He was a man who did not necessarily possess obvious inherent leadership skills, but he was a man of strong character and he had a high moral standard for himself. And this automatically threw him to the front of a social rebellion against the caste system and racial discrimination. The FM 6-22, the Army Manual, says that the leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. So this shows that people in this, you're not able to do this unless you have strong character. Warren Bennis, he was a famous psychologist who actually worked for the Army, and he wrote a lot of books about leadership in the Army. He said successful leadership is not about being tough or soft, sensitive or assertive, but it's about having a set of values. First and foremost is character. So this shows that you cannot be a good leader unless you have strong character. The Army requirements model supports my stance as it has character directly before leadership. The second premise is that character is learned. It takes years of schooling and socialization to correctly develop inherent character abilities. An example of this is Jeannie the Pharaoh child. She was a girl who was devoid of schooling and socialization for most of the 13 years before she was rescued. Her father kept her in a dark, empty room for most of her life because he thought she was undeserving of a regular life. And when they finally found her when she was 13 years old and 6 months, she was never able to actually develop simple, basic, fundamental character traits, even for the rest of her life, because she missed out on such key time to become correctly socialized and to learn character. So this shows that when you do not learn character, it is not innate, because Jeannie did not actually develop any of her character without schooling and socialization. Strong character is variable based on the social context that one lives in. An example of this is the Kiri-Sut-Gomen method. This is a Japanese custom back from the 15th century. It is when a samurai warrior would cut peasants to prove their worthiness as a samurai warrior and to check to make sure their blade was sharp enough. And they would go up to any peasant they wanted, and they would cut from the shoulder to the hip, and they would slice them through. And people would see this as very honorable, very respectful that they were able to do this. But now we would be appalled that someone would do this, because that is murder. So this shows that honor and respect is very much based on social context, and it needs to be learned. And this shows that character needs to be learned. So the third premise, that character automatically leads to leadership. So some of the character traits that are often sought for in society automatically leads to leadership traits that the Army wants. If you want to help others, this often makes you able to inspire others. You work hard, that's determined. You're inclusive, you build camaraderie, and you're humble, and you'll be a nice servant leader. And so this shows that character traits are very much easily transferred to leadership traits. And then without character, there is no good leadership. Example of this is the contrast between Huey Newton and MLK. They both graduated from college with philosophy degrees, both very smart people. They were born at the same time. They wanted to enact the same change for African Americans in America. The difference between them was that MLK had character and Huey Newton did not. MLK, his father was a pastor, so he obviously learned very good character traits. He went on to lead millions for the fight for civil rights for African Americans, Whereas Huey Newton, who did not have solid character traits and was often got in trouble for assault, drugs, murder, and whatnot, and a lot of other bad things, he did not end up leading very many people, and he ended up dying in a drug deal. And so, therefore, the fourth and final premise is that the best leadership, therefore, that the best leaders learn how to lead. And this is supported by the fact that once character is acquired, you can become a leader in so many different facets, even in the Army. There's different styles of leadership. There's different positions you can fulfill. And there's different personality types. So with so many variables involved, if you just have simply sound character, you can function as a leader with no matter the type of personality or style of leadership that you have. Thank you.